Tonight, in this edition of the primetime newscast on Equinoxe television, the senatorial election results have been published. The CPDM grabs the lion's share, wins 63 out of 70 seats. The remaining goes to the principal opposition political party in Cameroon, the Social Democratic Front, and other participating political parties go home empty-handed. We bring to you the various statistics of the 2018 senatorial election results across the national territory in this edition of the primetime newscast on Equinoxe television. And in the second part of this newscast, our guest is the spokesperson of the AYAH family and the president of the AYAH Foundation, AYAH ABINE, that is going to be talking about recent happenings in the country and the fact that his foundation was barred from entering AYAH recently. Those are headlines. Stay with us. We shall be right back. Good evening to you, ladies and gentlemen. We thank you so much for joining us in this edition of the primetime newscast on Equinoxe television. Let's begin right away in politics. The ruling Cameroon People's Democratic Movement, CPDM, has obtained 63 out of the 70 elected seats in the upper house of parliament. The official results of the 2018 senatorial election in Cameroon were proclaimed today by the Constitutional Council at the Yaoundé Conference Center. The Social Democratic Front is the second with 7 seats. The 7 political parties that took part as well in the senatorial election are going home without a single seat in the upper house of parliament. Details in the following report. The 70 senators elected for another 5 years in Cameroon's upper house of parliament are known. According to the results proclaimed Thursday by the Constitutional Council, 2 political parties, the CPDM and the SDF, grabbed the 70 seats. The governing Cameroon People's Democratic Movement emerged victorious in 9 out of 10 regions of Cameroon and grabbed 63 seats, making a total of 81.13%. The Social Democratic Front came second with 7 seats from the northwest region of Cameroon. 7 other opposition parties which took part in the election ended without a single seat. They are the ANDP, the NUDP, the UDP, UPC, UMS, CDU, and FSNC. In all, 81 polling stations hosted the senatorial elections across the national territory. 10,112 councillors registered, but 9,902 took part in the voting exercise and 210 cases of absences recorded. The head of state now has 10 days to appoint 30 more senators to make the upper house of parliament complete. This is the first victory of the Social Democratic Front in the northwest region of Cameroon, where majority of councillors are from the ruling CPDM party. It is equally the first time that the Constitutional Council, put in place in February 2018, is making public results of the senatorial election in the country. And what change would the Senate bring as far as the coming 5-year term is concerned? We shall be talking about that in the second part of this newscast. Now, chiefs in Meme division of the southwest region of the country are calling for an end to killings and destruction of properties. They were speaking during a crisis meeting that took place in Kumba that was yesterday, chaired by the senior divisional officer for Meme division. Let's have the details with Babla Jonathan.
Since the Anglophone crisis escalated more than a year down memory lane, the number of civilians and elements of the National Armed Forces killed and public and private properties destroyed has been on a steady rise. And now, chiefs of the Meme division say enough is enough.
When we look at our villages, there have been burning of houses, there have been killing of people. That in our tradition, in the tradition of the Oroka people, it's a sacrilege to burn a house, to kill somebody, and that we resolve that from now henceforth, that killings and burning of houses in our various villages, from whatever angle, should cease, because it is a sacrilege.
At a crisis meeting with the Meme Senior Divisional Officer and Tundong Chamberlain, the traditional authorities resolved to bring back home their subjects who have fled their homes and are seeking refuge in the bushes and out of the country.
In as much as our people are living in the bush, that we are taking the strong resolve to go back to our various villages and call our villagers to leave the bushes and come back home in order to take on their economic activities. Else, hunger will kill us if they don't come and work. The houses that have been destroyed, that these people whose houses have been destroyed should come back home so that these houses should be identified, and then we give the various villages and give to hierarchy for appropriate measures to be taken.
The custodians of the people's tradition are requesting for effective decentralization as enshrined in the 1996 Constitution of Cameroon as the way out of the socio-political impasse.
Decentralization, that is not thought of in our constitution, that was enshrined in the Constitution of the Republic of Cameroon in 1996, should be hastened, and it should be accelerated, and that the chiefs in the main stand for 10 autonomous decentralized regions.
In the meantime, several villages in the southwest region remain deserted.
Babla Jonathan there reporting now 12 tourists presumed to have been taken hostage by some yet to be identified individuals in Guti, southwest region of Cameroon, have been reunited with their respective ambassadors. This was during a press briefing organized yesterday by Cameroon's communication minister Issa Shirma Bakari that was claiming victory over what he called secessionists and terrorists. Innocent Aze has the details.
All 12 tourists declared taken hostage in Guti, southwest region by unidentified individuals, according to Cameroon's communication minister Issa Shirma Bakari, are now taking breath of relief. The 12 Swiss and Italian tourists were handed over to their respective ambassadors during a press briefing Wednesday in Yaoundé in okay condition.
Beaucoup de reportages ont été neutralisés. Les 12 touristes sont parmi nous.
To Minister Issa Shirma Bakari, it is thanks to the collaboration of the population and the traditional rulers that the defense and security forces snatched the 12 tourists from hands of the unknown men.
La synergie donc de ces deux ensembles a permis de libérer.
Critics say they are astonished as to how tourists could easily be held hostage in the troubled Anglophone region, which has been heavily militarized since the wake of the Anglophone crisis. Other members of the civil society have raised doubts on the declaration by the communication minister.
Sécessionnistes terroristes qui les ont pris en otage.
And the before now booming AYAH, that is in Manu division of the southwest region of the country, has been adversely affected as a result of the socio-political tension rocking the northwest and the southwest regions of Cameroon. Business persons in the border town are complaining of fall in profits as few persons are now traveling between Cameroon and Nigeria via AYAH. We traveled to AYAH and we are now presenting the situation in AYAH in the following report. AYAH is one of the busiest transit points for persons doing business between Cameroon and Nigeria. It is situated in the Eyomojok district in Manu division, southwest region. Hundreds of persons pass through daily to cross over to Nigeria or travel to Cameroon, a majority of them for business purpose. But since the start of the Anglophone crisis, business has been on a standstill.
I'm from AYAH. I was born here.
Ojong Roland owns a food provision store in AYAH. He has been in this business for over 40 years now.
We make small petty business. But now things need to work out because the crisis we there for country.
He told us that things have not been the same again since the Anglophone crisis escalated.
Yeah, at first time we peace be there for country. For business aspect for one day, like for my store, for one day I feel it sell like 300,000 francs. But down, as population no day, understand now, if it sell sometimes 70, 100.
He now takes home twice less than the benefit he had months back as a businessman.
Activities for her, we only do work from morning time, 6 o'clock they lock border.
The transport sector is also on a standstill.
I apply AYAH Kumba AYAH.
Tashia Bonaventure is a driver along the Kumba AYAH highway.
If you can see, since morning I'm here, I don't have passenger to go back.
Apart from the problem of multiple checkpoints, the number of persons who travel to AYAH has dropped drastically. Drivers say it is a huge blow.
At first, the team was very nice, we enjoyed the work, we make a lot of money, but now we cannot have that opportunity again anymore. Because of this Anglophone crisis, the team have just made nothing is going anymore. People do not travel any longer along the road. You know, sometimes we leave Kumba very early. You can take like 3 passengers before you get at the Korea. You call Ramassage, you make Ramassage. Before you get here, you make a lot of money. But now, along the road, those villages along the road, Wone, all this Konya, nobody stays there again. Everybody has run, so we don't have no more opportunity again.
One of the profitable ventures months back in AYAH was the hotel business, but dealers in the sector now say that the glory days is history.
Approximately 3 months now.
Bame Marcel has been managing one of the most renowned hotels in AYAH for 20 years now. The number of persons checking in daily has reduced.
In my hotels now I don't have more customers because now people are afraid to sleep. Some even come instead to sleep here, they'll run over to Nigeria side to sleep there because they think that the places are no more secured anymore.
In AYAH, the crippling business environment is general. The rate of employment here has also witnessed a significant drop as a result of the challenges faced by business persons. Another problem raised was that of constant power cut.
We get light. Sometimes we will get light up like 1 week. Sometimes it will be like 2 days. They off. The next day, no day.
Money transfer agencies and businesses which survive on electricity are bound to procure generators, which the people also complain is expensive.
Like you see, for this my place, I spend like 40,000 francs for 1 week. While they use, they buy fuel.
The request of the population is for the government to provide solutions to the Anglophone crisis before things get out of hand.
We pray for peace. I myself, I pray for peace. Make peace be for country so that meeting they find. The big man for Cameroon is just for call for the people for dialogue so that this problem should be. And because like now, if this thing continues like this, it can make us to go astray.
And it should be noted that Equinoxe Television was traveling to AYAH with the AYAH Foundation, but the journey did not see a fruitful end as the team was prevented from entering AYAH by officials of the frontier police, and that is in AYAH. The president of the AYAH Foundation, AYAH ABINE, in disappointment criticizes the move, saying that it is the first time that he was restricted from entering his own hometown. Let's hear him in the following excerpt.
I'm on my way to the village, AYAH. You know why we get to AYAH through AYAH. AYAH is the most enclaved place in Cameroon, the most enclaved village. And I met the authorities, and the authorities told me that in order to visit AYAH and spend Easter with them, because that was the objective, I need to go and seek an authorization from the senior divisional officer. So I told them most of my family members are even in Amana, in neighboring Nigeria, with the host of the villagers of AYAH that are refugees there in Amana. And they told me even if I have to go to Amana, to commune with my family and give any support I have for refugees, I have to go and meet the senior divisional officer and get authorization from him before going across the border. So I insisted, and they made a number of calls for about 3 hours. They called almost everybody in the Republic, and they still gave me the same reply. So I have to go back to my country.
Have you tried getting in contact with the SU?
There is a polite way of not wanting to let me go help people that need help. So there's no need for that. I won't do that. I believe there are some people in high places that don't want us to help people in need. That's the only answer I can give to that. They don't want us to help people who are in desperation. Do I need an authorization to go and see my family from the senior divisional officer? That's the first time I'm hearing that. I always come and get a pass, and I just move, get my documents stamped at the Nigerian section and the immigration section in AYAH, and I come back. So this is the first time I'm getting that injunction, and it's terribly embarrassing that I don't have to go to my village because it would require me going with Equinoxe TV to cover.
And the president of the AYAH Foundation, AYAH ABINE, is our guest that's going to be in the second part of this newscast. Now, inhabitants of Daido stormed the head office of the electricity distributing company here in the economic capital, Douala, saying that 10 days is enough to go without electricity. They were protesting, as Manjikan Gabriel tells us in the following report.
We want power supply. We need light. 10 days without energy supply is too much in you. Those were the messages brandished by angry Daido inhabitants Thursday as the demand for the reinstatement of energy supply that has been out for 10 days now. An angry inhabitant says if nothing is done, they won't stay off the area.
I'm playing Daido.
In the heart of Daido, 10 days without power supply. How can we live, go to work? We can't even cook. Our children are refusing to return home to pass the night. I'm a seamstress by profession. 10 days without power supply has cost me much. It's too much. If EMU doesn't reinstate power supply this day, we are not going to live. She further decries the way the country is being managed. It's too much. Where is the country heading to? Our meat have all spoiled in our refrigerator, and every place smells due to dirt littered everywhere in the neighborhood. The main entrance of the company in charge of power supply in the country was blocked, denying access to its workers. The demonstration comes at a time when the Minister of Energy was making his very first visit to Douala since his appointment.
And victims of the yesterday's demolition in Makepe, Misoke here in the economic capital, Douala, are now preparing to spend their second night in the open air. The over 90 affected families complained that it was a terrible night yesterday. Innocent Aze tells us more.
This is Bel Air in Makepe Misoke in Douala, 24 hours after over dozens of houses were demolished, leaving over 90 families homeless. Victims have come back to the scene in disbelief, hoping to wake up from this slumber. Not having other places to go, some of them have occupied nearby yards, verandas to park their rescued property, such as mattresses, beds, furniture, kitchen utensils, cloth, and other household items.
You can see since yesterday that they came and destroyed. This way I bought my things with my little children. My baby is right inside, is that she is sleeping. There are so many things outside, the things of people. It was not easy for us yesterday night to sleep. They even came and steal. They steal so many things yesterday.
They do not know what to do. They are frustrated. They slept in very deplorable conditions. The victims have transformed yards to their homes. Abun Eva, whose house was equally destroyed, is 8 months pregnant and now needs proper care, but she is going through hardship. They lack finances to take care of themselves. The landowner in question is still to react to why he destroyed homes when the matter has not been judged in court. According to a legal mind, the preamble of the Constitution in Cameroon provides, in case of eviction, resettlement, destruction or seizure of someone's property, house or land, the government is usually required to provide compensation, and even before destroying the house, the government must issue notices ahead of time.
Les pouvoirs publics sont laxistes à ce niveau-ci, dans la mesure où justement il y a aussi la loi 80.
Meantime, the affected inhabitants call for government intervention.
Rabiatu Aliyu, they're taking a look at the deplorable living conditions of those whose houses were demolished. That was yesterday in Makepe Misoke neighborhood here in the economic capital Douala. They're bringing us to the end of this first segment of the news. Up next is Talking Point. As we announced earlier, tonight we are going to be receiving the president of the AYAH Foundation and the spokesperson of the AYAH family, Mr. AYAH ABINE. Good evening to you. Thank you so much for joining us tonight on Talking Point.
Thank you, Sister Mimi. Thanks for having me.
In the course of this newscast, we have talked about the senatorial election results that were finally proclaimed today in the nation's capital, Yaoundé, by the Constitutional Council that was put in place barely a few weeks ago in the month of February 2018. Now, we are going to be having a different political configuration in Cameroon Senate for the first time after the election results were proclaimed. Only 2 political parties are at the Senate as at now, because the President of the Republic still has to appoint 30 more senators, and the Social Democratic Front has lost 7 seats in the upper house of Parliament. What is your reaction?
I belong to the school of thought that believes that we don't need a Senate. It's a waste of money and resources. That money can be used in building reference hospitals in all subdivisions, or just 1/10 of that money can be used in helping Cameroonian refugees that are in Nigeria get some relief, or just about 1/4 of that amount of money used in running the Senate yearly can be used in rebuilding the houses of citizens that have been burned in villages like Didi, Kwakwa, even as recently as yesterday, Konye, Kembong, you have all this. So the Senate to me is a waste of resources. It's true that on paper you need those institutions, just on paper, because everything in Cameroon is on paper.
You're an actor of the civil society, and the role of the Senate in a country like Cameroon cannot be undermined.
It has no role.
What makes you think that the Senate is not as vital as you are saying?
It has no role at all. The Parliament is made up of 2 houses of assembly, the National Assembly and Senate. It's the National Assembly that makes the law. They send it to the Senate for proofreading. The Senate sent it back to the Assembly. It's the Assembly that makes law. Nothing has changed in the lives of Cameroonians since we had the Senate. Nothing at all. No, maybe something has changed. We've had more money allocated to that house of retirees, if we can call it that way. Money which could be pumped into the private sector, or as I said earlier, into rebuilding the houses of citizens in lots of areas in the north and southwest regions that have been burnt down. I believe, as I've always said, we have 3 arms of government on paper. It's just on paper. But in practice, we have 1 arm of government. We have the executive, we have the executive legislature, and we have the executive judiciary. The executive does everything. In Parliament, for example, as I mentioned, the National Assembly, all the bills come from the executive. And when those bills are in Parliament, at times, not even a T is cut or an I is dotted. The bills just go in and have their way. We don't need a Senate. The Senate is a waste of resources.
From your declarations, the outgoing Senate has not been able to live up to expectations of you and many Cameroonians that have been complaining. What were you expecting from the senators that were there for 5 years that has made you say that the institution is not worthy to be in place in the first place?
I expected nothing from the Senate because, as I've said earlier, it has no role to play. The only thing the Senate does is to read and proofread the bills that are voted, enacted, if I can put it that way, the bills that go through Parliament. So Parliament does the work, the National Assembly, sorry, the lower house does the work and sends it to the Senate, and the Senate just reads. And if there's anything to be adjusted, the Senate does nothing, no adjustment. They send it back to Parliament. The Senate is just like, if I can call it that way, maybe an English language teacher that just reads the things that have been done by the National Assembly and says, okay, I think what you people have done is good. I just propose that you add one or two of these. And even if the National Assembly doesn't do that, the Senate has no.
But Mr. AYAH, the Senate is there and Cameroonians have to deal with it. Now we have the situation now in the upper house of Parliament, just with two political parties looking at the importance of the upper house of Parliament, especially when it has to do with political transition in Cameroon. We see just the Social Democratic Front and the governing CPDM. What does it tell us?
A same story we've had, I think, 3 days, complementing themselves. Little or nothing to the lives of Cameroonians, little or nothing at all in the lives of Cameroonians. Let's take an example. The Anglophone crisis affecting the lives of Cameroonian citizens. Their nationality has not changed until the contrary is proven. It is barred from being talked about in the Senate and the National Assembly. So even those two houses, but let's just deal with the National Assembly. The Senate has no role. It's a waste of resources. We do not need it. But since it's already there, let's just accompany them as they spend our hard-earned taxpayers' money to enjoy themselves. They have nothing to do.
And now that you are talking about the Anglophone crisis, yesterday we saw the images of some alleged kidnappees that have been released by the government of Cameroon. According to the Communication Minister, Issa Shirma Bakari, they were kidnapped by what he described as terrorists. But we are having conflicting reports from some international media organs, like the Reuters. Even Anglophone activists are saying that they are not behind the kidnapping. What do you have to say about that?
Well, I think when there are conflicting declarations, we go by the declaration of the victims. The victims, from what I've read, except I'm wrong, from Reuters and all those, they are saying they were not kidnapped by anybody. That's what the victims are saying. The government is giving another version. If we are, for example, in court, the judges, we are jurists, we like the law, the judges will go by the declaration of the victims and not by third-party declarations. So I would prefer the declaration of the victims that they were not kidnapped unless those international organizations like Reuters and the rest are telling a lie. But if they were telling a lie, the victims would have showed up and said, no, Reuters, you're telling a lie. So I go by the declaration of the victims. They were not kidnapped.
Do you think
whatever.
that the government is trying to paint Anglophone activists black in front of the national and the international community? Is that the objective here?
I believe it should fall among their objectives, one of their objectives. For example, you see, we have to get a number of deviation tactics. The most deviation tactics we can get, the better for us. So this would be maybe some way to escape from the fact that we have over 50,000 nationals in Nigeria prostituting, sleeping on the streets, begging and fighting to survive. And the government has made no statement of its citizens that are dying in Nigeria. So we need this kind of things to divert from the truth that is staring us in the naked eye. So we need this kind of diversions. We don't need this kind of diversions. If there are declarations to be made, those declarations should be about the victims of the crisis. And up to this point, the government has been very irresponsible in that regard.
Talking about irresponsibility on the part of the government, we have been seeing meetings of some government officials. The Minister of Territorial Administration visited the two Anglophone regions. In the course of this newscast, we saw the report of Babla Jonathan talking about the senior divisional officer for Meme Division that was calling on chiefs to play their role and ensure that those that have escaped into bushes return to their respective localities. Do you think it's reassuring for Anglophone Cameroonians that are now seeking refuge in Nigeria, like you say, others in bushes and others in other parts of the country?
What he was doing is showbiz. Maybe there was some, I don't know, maybe he had some benefits, financial benefits from doing, but that is showbiz. It's very far from what we expect. But what can he even do? There is nothing he can do at the moment where the government is not helping the situation. Let me say it this way. This is how we are solving the Anglophone crisis. In the morning, we are preaching dialogue, inclusive dialogue.
They are the people using those terms, not me. We're preaching inclusive dialogue in the morning. And just after saying inclusive dialogue, we go trying to shoot our way through the crisis, burning down houses. And at a certain point, we say, though we are talking inclusive dialogue, our definition of the word inclusive is different from what the dictionaries have of inclusive. We will talk only with some people. We call them the moderates. You have Fontem, Bala, AYAH, Tumi, Wiba, all of them falling into that category. Now, this is the problem. I am talking to the moderates, they are watching. There is no moderate in Cameroon, on the ground as they call it, that has a control of the situation. No moderate. They have lost it all. They have no voice. No voice at all.
So who has the voice now?
The radicals have taken out of the show. The problem a lot in this country is that we don't speak the truth. Every society that wants to grow must grow in truth and justice. Those are the things we should be preaching. Truth and justice. Because when you have truth and justice, you have peace. When we go by preaching peace and all those other slogans, it's like hiding injustice and untruth. Let's preach truth and justice. The truth is, neither Bala, Fontem, Tumi, Wiba, AYAH, and the rest has a control of the situation on the ground.
AYAH is your father.
Exactly.
So curious.
Exactly. He has no control of the situation on the ground. Saying the contrary would imply that these 5 people are the people sending people to kill security forces, which is the order of the day now. I was to go, for example, to Bello today, and I was called by people there, and they told me, don't come, there is
it was a very chaotic atmosphere.
And it would imply that is these 5 people that are providing arms, as we have heard, to people on the ground. No. It will imply that it's these 5 people that are telling people, keep your kids away from school and just maintain the status quo as it is until such a time that the government wants to speak. It is not these 5 people. Let them be honest to themselves. They have no control of the situation on the ground. So when you're preaching dialogue and you don't want it to be inclusive, how do you go about this? There must be a way. You would have to call these radicals and say, hey guys, please, let us give dialogue a chance. It's only at that point that you will involve the moderates. Involving the moderates now, you saw what they did to Frundi. They came after him. Even when the crisis started, they told him, sir, go home, we don't need you here. Bala, they came after him. Fontem, they told him, just keep quiet. That's why he's very quiet, he has nothing to say. AYAH said, oh man, just go home. We understand what you have gone through. We don't want to rough handle you. They don't have a control of the situation. So we preach inclusive dialogue in the morning and we practice the contrary. During the day, we take peace plans and parade the streets of the north and southwest region, which is a very good thing. We need peace. The contrary situation is dramatic. Citizens held those peace plans on the 22nd and the 1st last year, and they were shot and killed. And we hold those peace plans in areas that are relatively very quiet. Boya and Bamenda, they have little or no issues. Rather than taking those peace plans to the war zones where the military is burning houses, the military is supposed to protect its citizens. The military is burning houses. Take those peace plans to Kwakwa, to Didi, to Kembong, to the refugees.
But the government officials would tell you that the Anglophone activists are carrying out the burnings in the northwest and the southwest regions of Cameroon.
Unimpeachable sources, including me, who has been on the ground, I'll say the contrary. Unless you want to tell me the cardinal, one of the most respected Anglophones living, is a liar. He went to his village and he saw the same thing, and he had eyewitnesses. I have been to Kembong, I've been to Didi, I've been to Konya, I've been to Kwakwa. If it weren't the military, our troops, then citizens will be running to the military in times of chaos and not for safety, and not running away from the military. That's what we did when we were young. When we had issues, we called the military, we ran to the commissariats. What is happening now? We see the military and we run away. There's a problem. I can tell you authoritatively that even me, when I see the military coming the south and northwest regions, I change course. How on earth will we rebuild the confidence between the population and the military ever again? How will we do that? And the third point, as I was talking, we stop those who want to help refugees, our citizens in another country, from helping them. We stop them. We are doing nothing about it. We are not talking about it. We don't want anybody to talk about it. And those who are helping us to do their job are stopped from doing that. It's abominable.
Like you were stopped in Equinoxe, that was just a few days ago. You were about traveling to AYAH and then to the refugee camps.
Yeah, That is the greatest humanitarian abomination of all time. See, Mimi, even in war-torn Syria, for about a decade now and plus, humanitarian access is granted by both extremes to victims who are caught in the crossfire.
Do you think there's a particular reason as to why you have been prevented from crossing over to Nigeria?
Yes, there are several reasons. Number one, as I said earlier, the government has made no statement about its citizens that are dying and prostituting and begging in another man's land. There, I've been there. There, water is a luxury. Portable water. I don't want to go to food. Water is a luxury. Kids are dying. Grandparents are turning against your grandchildren and granddaughters for sachets of oil and cups of water. The government makes no statement about the citizens that are dying in another man's land. But we are helping Central African refugees up east, and we're making statements for the whole world to hear. So for the government,
even Nigerian refugees.
Even Nigerian refugees. So for the government, charity does not begin at home. Charity starts abroad and ends abroad. That's why they are stopping everybody who wants to help. Oh God, Mimi.
Mr. AYAH ABINE, is there a way out to the refugee crisis now in Nigeria, because it's getting more and more alarming? The United Nations High Commission for Refugees keeps telling us that the figures are swelling on a daily basis. We move from hundreds of thousands to tens of thousands as we speak.
And I can authoritatively tell you...
Is there a way out?
Yeah, there is a way out.
The refugee crisis.
I can authoritatively tell you. Yeah, I can authoritatively tell you, like somebody who's been there, that there are over 50,000 refugees in those areas. 4 states: Cross River State, Benue State, Taraba State, and Akwa Ibom State. There are patches in Lagos and Abuja, people who have just given up. They've just given up and they're trying to find a way out. They are in patches in Akwa Ibom, Abuja, and even at Enugu. Government should send a delegation to Nigeria. The first question that was asked to me by the second in command of Cross River State was, "Are you a government official?" I said, "No." I was even ashamed by his questions. He had to even call Cameroon to verify who I was. I said, "No, I'm not a government official." "What's your government saying about this?" I just told him, "No, the government has an agenda. They're preparing." "They are preparing." I said, "Okay." The government sends a delegation to Nigeria to visit its citizens. You can't be talking of appeasement and dialogue on solving the Anglophone crisis, and you're mentioning nothing about your citizens that are dying in another man's land. How can you be practicing? It's like those pastors we had of yesteryears that are saying, "Do what I say, I know what I do." You're preaching A and you're practicing B. The government sends a delegation there. Number one. Number two, those houses that have been burned, those people want to return. Where do they come to? Their houses have been burned. There is no gainsaying. We know who's burning the houses. Where do they come and live in? That's what's talking of the Senate. If we cut off just a quarter of that budget that is used to run those luxury cars, those flamboyant salaries, we will rebuild those houses. We should rebuild those houses. We burn the houses. They come back and stay where? Number three, the AYAH Foundation has started Come Back Home for refugees. We started bringing in some of the kids. The government should join us in that Come Back Home.
Is it an easy task for you as president of the AYAH Foundation?
It is an enormous tax. It's very
difficult. Now that you are even being prevented or restricted from entering Nigeria.
And that's the shameful thing about it. If the government wants to solve the crisis, it starts with the refugees. It comes to the detainees. It comes to some sort of talk with the radicals. Let us speak the truth and shame the devil. We know those who are in control of the situation. They are on the internet. We know them. Find a way to tell Mark Barretta, Akosun Pauline Tapang Ivo, the general as they call him, as Funde calls him. Find a way to tell those people,
like you say.
The radicals. Find a way to tell those people, please let us give dialogue a chance. They are the people in control. The moderates on the ground have no control unless they are the people killing our troops, unless they are the people telling students not to go to school, unless they're the people telling the population to believe in the radicals.
Thank you so much, Mr. AYAH ABINE. Thank you so much for joining us tonight on Talking Point. We hope to have you some other time again.
You're a very beautiful woman.
Thank you so much. To our viewers, it was equally a pleasure for having you with us in this edition of the Primetime Newscast on Equinoxe Television. Wishing you a blessed stay in the company of our programs. Until we meet again, goodbye.